Welcome everybody to the Shanghai International Circuit for our team principals press conference ahead of the FIA Formula One Chinese Grand Prix. We have Ollie Oakes, Zak Brown and Christian Horner joining us. And gentlemen, can we start by paying tribute to former F1 team owner Eddie Jordan, who passed away yesterday. Christian, can we start with you, your memories of EJ?
Yeah, I mean, incredibly sad. I mean, he was such a big character, an inspirational character to have taken his team from effectively Formula Ford to Formula One. And he'll be sadly missed. You know, my personal memories of him go back to 1991 as an aspiring young racing driver, and you know, meeting him for the first time. He just moved into a factory that he built at Silverstone. Yeah, he took the time with me late in the evening to talk about you know, next steps in your career, and his advice was, you know, thing about motorsport is you need a good sponsor, and you know, welcome to the Piranha Club. So you know, he was just a larger than life character, and I think that you know, he was always fun to have around. He was the heart and soul of any party. You know, his love of music was legendary. He and his band, you know, they would want to play anywhere. And he'll just be very sadly missed. I think, you know, the sport is a poorer place for not having Eddie around anymore. And the amount of drivers that he gave an opportunity to, young drivers, he was a great champion of young talent. And not just drivers, but, you know, engineers and technicians and designers. So many people in this paddock, you know, owe him a debt of gratitude for the opportunities that he provided. So a very sad day to learn of his passing yesterday.
Yeah, Eddie was a big personality, a proper racer, responsible for a lot of people's great careers in motor racing. A lot of racing drivers. I remember being at Spa in '91 when Michael Schumacher debuted in his car and qualified. I think it was 7th, an iconic-looking racing car. Punched above his weight. You know, he I think it was in the late '90s, had a proper run at the championship, and was a great personality and will be sorely missed. We need more individuals like Eddie Jordan in Formula One. They're kind of the life of the party.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just an inspiration, isn't he, as a character, and listening to Flav this morning on a few stories. Obviously, he's had a few run-ins with him. And even on my side, my high-tech started out of a unit at Silverstone that's on his little park there next to the old Jordan factory. So, yeah, I think it's an incredible guy and obviously leaves a big legacy behind.
Brilliant. Thank you to all three of you for that. Ollie, let's stay with you now. A sample of one race, but has the performance of the car met expectations so far?
Yes, I think it has. I think, you know, we had a pretty good Saturday there with Pierre into Q3. I think Jack did a good job as well. He was a bit unlucky also not to scrape through or be close to Pierre there with a yellow. But I think Sunday, you know, those conditions, we were a bit frustrated to sort of walk away empty-handed. But I think, yeah, we're feeling pretty confident for the season.
And let's talk about the drivers. Pierre, first of all, his third season with the team. He's now the senior driver. Have you sensed a change in his approach this season?
No, it's a little bit more harmonious between the two of them. But I think he's just been a good figurehead in the team. And I think it's, you know, having him there with Jack, it definitely gives us a good lineup. Yeah.
Oh, and let's talk about Jack. You said last week in Melbourne that he's had a lot of pressure put on him, and part of that has come from the team. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a balance, isn't there? There's the aspect of we want to have a good lineup. We also want to have some good drivers in the pipeline. And I think by doing that, we obviously naturally created a little bit of noise around him. But I think, you know, credit to him that he's got down to business as soon as the season started. And I think the job he did in Australia was brilliant. I think, obviously, We saw a couple of people getting caught out on Sunday with the conditions, but that's to be expected when you're a rookie, and he just needs to dust himself off and go again, which this morning he did a good job straight away. A little bit of a frustration there of a failure at the end, but he was doing a good start to the weekend again.
Brilliant. Ollie, thank you very much for that. Zach, let's come to you now. A first time since 2012 that McLaren has won the opening race of the season. How does that change things for you and for the team in terms of pressure?
I think the pressure is always on in Formula One every weekend, every session. It was a great start to the season. Clearly the car is very fast. The team's done a great job. Drivers did a great job. Felt terrible for Oscar there towards the end. He made a strong recovery. But conditions were tricky. It was a pretty stressful race with all the restarts, and then you had Max in the game, which every time he's can compete for the win, that is a difficult guy to beat. Did a great job, and I think it's going to continue to be very close.
Does it require a change in mentality to be the hunted rather than the hunter?
I don't think so. I mean, you can definitely. I can tell our drivers have great confidence coming off of a very strong season. They're in great shape. They're in a great frame of mind, as is the team. I would say the pit wall was outstanding, given all the pressures, whether it was the drivers or the weather or the rain or the tires or the restart. So I felt not only are the drivers on top of their game, the team, everyone back at the factory and here at the circuit and the pit wall, I was very happy to see how they reacted to kind of the constant pressure of a Grand Prix and the changing conditions.
What about the car? Lando said yesterday that it's difficult to drive. I'm quoting him now. It's difficult to drive and it doesn't suit his driving style. Is that a cause for concern?
Well, I think you're always trying to make the car a little bit easier for the drivers. Someone said to me yesterday, it didn't look like you put a lap time down in Bahrain testing. And it was we tried. We just didn't put one down. So I think we need to make the car a little bit more compliant. It's clearly very quick, but when you get it up on its nose, so to speak, and you're flinging it around at 10 tenths, the drivers want to make it a little bit more compliant. So they put it together in Q3 in Australia. I think we have the benefit of both drivers pushing each other, because we were pleasantly surprised by the gap in Q3, because you didn't see that in Q1 and in Q2, and think maybe some others underperformed on their lap. So it's one race in tricky conditions, so let's see how things play out over the next few races. I don't think we've seen the final lineup yet.
Okay, Zach, thank you very much for that. Christian, let's come on to you now. What did you make of the pace of McLaren last weekend in Melbourne? Are they in another planet, or are they catchable?
Well, they were certainly very quick, both in qualifying and particularly the first half of the race. On the inter-tire, the degradation was very low, and they've obviously done a very good job. They have a good car. They've got two good drivers that were pushing each other hard. And the race came back to us. I think as the conditions became a bit more variable, others made mistakes. I think we were able to capitalize on that. And Max got pretty close at the end there. I mean, 0.8 of a second, and who knows, another lap or two what would have happened. But it was a very strong finish to the Grand Prix for us. But McLaren's look very strong, and again here I think they'll probably be the car to beat.
How much better is this year's RB21 to the one that you ended last season with?
We can see by the lap times everybody's going significantly quicker. And I think that we've significantly changed the characteristics or certain characteristics of the car. And so I think it gives us a broader base from which to work with now. And it's, of course, now a development race between now and Abu Dhabi in December. So it's going to be a 9-month marathon of a season. And from what we saw in Melbourne, if the racing's like that all the way through, it could be a bumper year.
And to win the championship, do you think you need to develop your car until Abu Dhabi?
Inevitably, it depends, how the championship plays out. But you've got to keep pushing. I mean, this business, if you're standing still, you're going backwards. So, and of course, there's that dilemma with next year's, regulations where you apply resource, where you don't. And but inevitably, you've got to keep chasing performance, keep getting performance on the car.
Okay, look, final one from me. Tough start for Liam last weekend in Melbourne. What advice have you given him coming into race 2 here in China?
I think Liam's got a pretty sensible head on his shoulders, and it was a tough baptism for him. He still came away with the second fastest race lap out of the race, and I just told him, look, ignore the naysayers and ignore social media. Get your head down, and he'll be fine. He just needs a bit of time.
Okay. Thanks to all three. Let's open this up now. Johnny, start with you.
John, over the race to all three of you. The idea of the V10 coming back to F1 to move from something that could be considered in the future to parties now actively pushing for it. There's talk about scrapping the 26 regulations, potentially rolling these engines on for 2 years and moving in 28. Where do you stand in this debate? What do you think should happen now as we move forward into 26 and the new rule cycle?
Who'd like to start with that? Christian?
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of debate about the future. We've got a set of regulations for next year in 26. I think there's some limitations to those regulations as far as the show and the racing is concerned. I think there's some aspects that we've ended up in a situation where the chassis is having to compensate a huge amount for perhaps some of the shortcomings of the split in electrification and combustion. But it's sort of 10 past midnight and Cinderella's left the building. So the romantic in you, a V10, a screaming V10, so long as it's done responsibly with fully sustainable fuels, I mean, is hugely attractive. I think the big question is, when would that be for? What is what would be the game plan between where we sit today and then? Because it would be a massive departure, obviously, to move away from what is currently being very hardly worked on for 2026. But I think from the fan in me, the concept of a screaming V10 engine, would be very exciting for the sport at whatever point is chosen for the future.
Zach?
Yeah, Formula One's always been a very technical challenge when you have new regulations. I think this is no different for 26. We're happy to race and ready to kind of race in whatever the rules may be. I think a V10 definitely, as Christian said, would be pretty cool with sustainable fuels. I don't really see how you can unwind what's in place, really, because of all the different power unit changes that are happening. Right, Audi's coming in, Alpine's going to Merck, Ford's joining. Logistically, I'm not sure how you put the genie back in the bottle. But from our standpoint, we're with HPP, very happy. They're ready to go, or will be ready to go, and so that wouldn't impact us. But it is a bit of a head scratcher of how you would put that in place if you did want to make a change. And I think every time there's a rule change, I remember when hybrids came in last time, there was some concerns, and that's worked out just fine. So I'm sure the engineers will get on the technical challenge and remain very exciting, as Formula One's always been.
I think they've both summarised it pretty well there. I think it's quite a romantic idea, but obviously the train has left the station now for 2026. But I think it is something probably beyond that will be looked at, because it does sound quite good for Formula One to go back that way a little bit. But as Zach said, we are quite far along as we are already. Yeah.
Thanks all three. Right, Alex, please.
Alex Canlocke, Autosport. Question to Zach, please. You mentioned that both drivers are feeling very confident as 2025 has begun. What could you tell us, please, about Lando specifically? I mean, outside the car, he does seem very at ease and is sort of getting on with his big opportunity running at the front. But what's it like inside the team? How's he working with you guys? Thanks.
His January, our drivers disappear in January. We give them January off, and he and Oscar came back in fantastic shape. You could just tell they've been very focused, training, very engaged with the racing team to understand the developments on the car, because we have quite a bit of innovation on the car. We've definitely not kind of polished last year's car and just continued. And just kind of the way he's carrying himself. In Australia, he felt very in control. A lot of pressure on you when you got your teammate and Max, in your DRS, and you have those conditions, and was it 3 or 4 restarts, and he was just very in control. His communication to the team was great. He knew what he wanted. He knew when to listen, and just felt like a very mature drive in what was very tricky conditions.
Thank you, Zach. Right. Let's go the other side to Luke.
Thank you. Luke Smith from The Athletic. For all three of you, it was announced last week that the Concord commercial agreement has been signed for the next cycle, which is obviously very good news for you guys, but the governance side is still in the works. Could you talk a little bit about that? Is it frustrating at all that we've not got that side over the line, as because normally they're done in coterminously, I believe is the definition for that?
Ollie, start with you this time.
I'm the new guy. It's the first one I've done. I mean, look, from my side, I think obviously it was pretty straightforward. I think it was impressive to see all the teams get together, get behind Liberty, everything they're doing. I think the sort of governance side will obviously fall into place shortly. But yeah, first one I've done, it was probably a walk in the park compared to what they've been through before.
Yeah, the commercial agreement came together pretty easily and pretty quietly, which was nice, because we know historically can be some drama around that, and I would expect that to be the same on the governance side. So I'm sure we'll turn our attention to that now, and kind of like the commercial agreement, which was a bit of a rinse and repeat. It was updated, modified, but there was no substantial changes. I would anticipate the governance being in the same situation. So yeah, it'll get done here shortly, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was all rather unexciting in the end compared to previous years. I think the important thing, I mean, it is unusual to have a tripartite agreement signed by only 2 sides, but I think the most important thing for the teams is they need to know what they're going to be paid, which is what that agreement's all about, is how the money is distributed. But of course, governance forms a crucial part of that, but that is more of an issue between the commercial rights holder and the FIA, so we leave it in their capable hands to work that out.
Okay, thanks all. Next, please. Yep.
Michael Butterworth, Xinhua News Agency. Zach and Christian, you both run very successful teams. You're both very ambitious individuals. I'm just wondering, what's the quality that each of you most admires about the other?
Good question.
I'll go first. I mean, obviously the results that Red Bull have put up, what has it been now, 20 years, are pretty awesome, right? And we're in the results-oriented business. They've won a lot of races, a lot of championships. Pretty awesome.
I think that there always has to be respect, and you have to respect competitors' performances. I think that McLaren obviously turned their season around last year. They did a very good job. They've built on that, and they look like the car to beat this year. So credit where credit is due. Everybody is different. Everybody operates in different ways. Every team has a different style of management, style of going racing, and that's what is part of the appeal and attraction of Formula One. And you get fans that follow their teams, their drivers accordingly. So, but I always think that it's always important to have respect where respect is due.
Thank you both. Right, next one.
Ronald Vodding, motorsport.com. It's a question to Zach on the driving style comments that Lando made. Neil Holdey said this morning that if we would make the car more suitable for a specific driving style, we could actually make it a bit slower. So is that kind of the balancing act you're facing now? And secondly, Lando himself said that in the past 1.5 years, he got much better in adapting his driving style to a specific car. Is that a development you've seen as well?
Yeah, definitely. And keep in mind, testing, you only have 3 days. Drivers split it. And then, in Australia, you had tricky conditions in the race. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, we have some innovations on the race car, which gives it a different feel. So clearly he did adapt to it pretty well in Australia. So, trying to get it more compliant. We certainly don't want to make it slower. And I'm sure he's still getting a little bit used to it. So not too worried about the two of them coming together.
Thank you, Zach. Right, Adam, please.
Adam Cooper, F1 for all three of you. The Cadillac entry was finally confirmed a couple of weeks ago. Now the dust has settled. What are your thoughts on competing with an 11th team on and off the track? Are you happy with the anti-dilution deal, and what can GM bring to Formula One?
Christian, we'll start with you this time.
Well, I mean, GM's a big brand. I think if it was anybody other than GM, we'd probably have a bigger issue with it. But the prospect of a GM versus Ford, competition, I think is somewhat appealing. Look, they've hit the criteria in terms of coming into the sport. The dilution is obvious. The cake split between 11 now rather than 10, but. We all got an early Christmas bonus as they're part of their signing on fee, so which has obviously negated the impact in the short term. And a big brand like GM coming into the sport, as I say, I think it's a positive. It shows the appeal of Formula One. It would have been unimaginable probably 5 or 6 years ago to think of a brand like Ford Motor Company and GM coming into Formula One. So I think it just demonstrates the strength and the power of the sport and the global appeal of Formula One to have these big American brands coming into Formula One.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting for the fans. They like new teams, new tracks, new power units, new drivers. So it'll be something that definitely everyone's going to be looking at. As Christian said, around the economics, it's fine. And I think they'll find Formula One's a big challenge, but I think it's going to be exciting for the sport. And it's amazing if you look at where the sport's come in 5 years. 5 years ago, we were fighting to keep teams on the grid. Now, 5 years later, people are fighting to get on the grid. So I think that talks to the health of the sport and the job that Stefano and Liberty have done to grow the sport. And you look at the health of all the racing teams and the people that want to join. Just shows how strong our sport is and going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a great brand to come in. I think it's another good storyline for 2026, along with the reg change. And I guess, as both said, we've got a few financial directors who are probably quite happy now looking at their bank balances, so it's all good. Yeah.
All right, thanks all three. Okay, next, please, Lawrence.
Lawrence Edmondson, ESPN. A question for Christian. Obviously, it's your last year with Honda. Can you just reflect on how they've been as an engine partner compared to maybe some of the ones you've had in the past? And also, how concerned are you about Honda teaming up with Adrian Newey at Aston Martin next year and competing against them?
Well, look, Honda are a great racing organisation. We've had a wonderful relationship since they obviously stepped away from McLaren. And joined in 2018, and then obviously joining with us in 2019. And we've won 6 world championships so far together in excess of 60 races. It's been the most successful Honda relationship in Formula One, and I think their passion, their commitment has been outstanding. And of course, their product is very, very strong. They continue that journey with Aston Martin. I'm sure they'll continue under the new regulations to provide competitive engines. So we'll be sad to say sayonara at the end of the year, but we'll look back on this period, with great pride. And of course, the next chapter for us is what's particularly exciting as we produce our own power unit under our own roof in Milton Keynes in the UK.
Thank you. Back to Ronald.
Ronald Vodding, motorsport.com. It's another one for Christian. You raised a question before when it comes to flexi wings, why the stricter test for the front wing only come into play from Barcelona onwards. When it comes to the rear wing, are you at least happy with the way that's monitored now with the changes for China?
Well, I mean, the FIA, you know, it's their job obviously to police these things. They obviously saw things that they weren't particularly happy with at the last race, so therefore, as is their prerogative, they've tightened up those regulations through a TD that came out this week. Now, what effect it has up and down the grid, I really don't know, but you know, that's just part and parcel of Formula One. TDs are almost forthcoming on a weekly basis.
Okay, thanks. Alex?
Alex Cannon-Lucas, Autosport. Another question to Zach, please, the sort of reverse of what I asked you earlier. What can you tell us about how Oscar's been in 2025? He always seems a very cool, sort of cleverly detached character, but with all this pressure on the team as being the proper front runner, has he been any different this time? Thanks.
No, he always comes very prepared. He's got a very cool mindset, always has. I think that's one of the things that makes him so strong. Very impressed with Oscar, have been from day one, hence signing him up to a longer-term deal so we could have stability in our team and just let everyone focus on racing. I think he drove a brilliant race in Australia, a great recovery from an unfortunate incident, and yeah, couldn't be happier with my two drivers.
Thank you, Zach. More questions? Yes, this side. Back to Adam.
Adam Cooper F1, for all three of you again. The trailer for the F1 movie was released, I think, a week ago today. From the footage you've seen, what do you think of it? What are your expectations for the film, and what do you think it can do for Formula One and for your sponsors?
Zach, why don't we start with you this time?
I think it's going to create a lot more exposure for Formula One. I think, I think back to Top Gun, and everyone wanted to be a fighter pilot and Tom Cruise after you watched Top Gun, and I think that'll be the case with Brad Pitt and going motor racing. So I think it will bring in some more fans, continue to bring in a more diverse fan base, a younger fan base. So I think it'll be great exposure for our sport.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's truly exciting. I mean, Jerry Bruckheimer just produces great movies, and I think this movie, from what we've seen so far, is really exciting. I mean, it puts Formula One on the big screen, and of course, the way that they've played out the story interacts with, the last couple of years of racing on track. So, in terms of the value add that it brings to the sport, to our partners, to the brands associated with Formula One, it puts it in front of yet another audience. Look, I'm sure the storyline will fit all categories, but I think in terms of an exposure for Formula One, it's outstanding, and looking forward to seeing it released. I think in the summer of this year.
Yeah, I think it's been exciting for F1. I think a whole new audience will potentially get hooked on the sport, and I think you only had to see at the launch in London. As soon as they put a snippet on the screen, everybody was sort of excited looking when it was coming out. So yeah, looking forward to it.